Welcome everybody to this month's Eventprofs Dublin Meetup. And so this evening we've got two fantastic speakers.
So just to get a feel for the people, it's great that it's an intimate audience because it means that you get to ask a lot of questions. So who is currently in events at the moment and running their own events? Okay, yeah, a lot. And who is here that they might want to run an event in the future? Great. And what are you here for? Just to engage. Is there any designers or developers or product people in the room? Great. 2, 3. So my talk will be on how to build a testable, workable, lovable event. And the goal here is, I've got 3 goals today. So first of all, I guess that's our mission. For our entire event, and that's really important for reasons later. But our goal is to get designers and developers in product teams. So it could be something from Google Maps, Spotify that you use on your or Samsung phone. Getting those teams who are building out, whether it's a designer creating the concept or a developer developing the code for it. It's getting those teams working better together to build a better product for the end user. And I want to talk today how that applies to events. I'll be talking then about how we've gone from 0 to 1,000 people in 2.5 years with UXDX and using the model of building a better product faster for doing this. So our goals for today, I want to give you a bird's eye view of what it takes to build a lovable event and knowing that you can't get there immediately and it takes time. I want to talk you through continuous learning, how you can actually go from concept to delivery, but in 1 year, but learn along the way as you go along, every 2 weeks, every week, or every interaction with your attendees. And then thirdly, I'm going to talk you through the value and the mission of UXDX and why that's really important for every event that you should run. You should have a mission for your event and you should have value. And that needs to be at the core of what you do as an event manager or in anything that you do in your role. So, most of you, hands up, who've heard of MVP? Yeah? It's minimum viable product. So what's the minimum that you can get out there? It's a very common concept in the software industry. I'm going to talk about a minimum viable event, but with our slant on it. So what does it take to get a minimum event out there? So the problem with an MVP or an MVE is what's value to you and what's valuable to me is totally different. Also, what's minimal to you versus minimal to me is totally different. I've got quite low standards when it comes to minimalist. Other people might have higher standards. So you're straight away, if you do a bare bones event, it could be great to you, you're happy with it, but for the audience, they might think, well, that was the shittest thing that I've ever heard in my life. So again, you have to consider that. And that's when it comes into looking at releasing early and releasing often. So trying to come up with a cycle in your events approach or whatever you're doing to build it, to measure it, so talking to your attendees, talking to your users, and how do you learn from that experience? Constantly, not just on the day. If most people are doing, it hands up who does annual events out of the people that, annual events, are people running monthly events then, mostly? Monthly events. So the more frequent you can interact with your audience, the more feedback you'll get, which will be important to actually improve in the future. So rather than a minimal viable event, which has its flaws, we go for an earliest testable, workable, and lovable event, knowing that we want the vision to be at our lovable, and that's the goal, that's everyone's goal. We all want to be a version of Web Summit in terms of success, whatever success means for you. But you can't get there overnight. It takes time. So that's when it comes to your testable product or your testable event. Testable means time bound. You have to give yourself a goal and the shortest time frame that will take to do that. It's only a test, it's a beta, it's about getting it out there. It's something if it's a workable product, it's basically something that you begrudgingly might accept. You're not happy with it, it's not the event that you wanted, but it's something that will get you there. It's a stepping stone. And then the lovable part. The lovable is the vision that you actually want. For us, a lovable event, in 5 years' time, we want to get to 3,000-4,000 people, and we want to be globally recognized as the go-to event for the product industry. We want people to associate our event with high quality, case study driven, and an impeccable experience, and something that provides it's taking on agile and the product industry norms. That's our lovable event, but a lovable might be something different to you. We're not there yet, we are in theory. So how does all this product stuff relate to events? So I talked earlier about the mission. You need to have a mission for your event. That's number one of building any event. And it's the first thing you should write down on paper, is what is your mission for this? What is the value to the attendees? I thought about this in terms of what might be valuable for you tonight. That is the number one thing that you should look at when you're building an event for an audience, is what is the mission? Our mission is, it takes a team to build a product. That is our value proposition that we give to our attendees, and that's the reason for them coming. Then the approach. So you might have a mission for your event. There is 1,000 different ways you can cut an event. How are you actually going to do it? Are you going to do drinks in the evening? Are you going to do just keynotes? Are you going to do a TED style talk? There is a number of different ways. For us, it's case studies in the market. So it's practice, not theory. That's a big one for us. And it's also encouraging connections. We have experience twice in our name, so building connections and having a great experience is something that is really important. And thirdly, the metrics. What do you actually judge yourself and your team and your company on what you actually have delivered? For us, it's customer satisfaction, which should be everyone's. It's also proof of improvements in teams attending. So that means, in a nutshell, we have teams who attend our event for a specific reason. They want to speed up delivery and build a better product. That's their goal. And so it's my goal to make sure after a month's time I go back to them and I go, right, how are you improving it? How did the event work for you? And in 6 months' time, okay, have you implemented those stuff? And in 12 months' time, they should be coming back at a much more elevated level to you. Otherwise, you're not creating an annual event that's growing. You're just creating something for the sake of it. So that's just, the metrics are something those three things are really important in terms of thinking of your event and where to go with it. So before you build an event, you do have to validate your concept. So if some of you are thinking of a new event, you do need to validate it and whether it's going to work and how are you going to do that. So this is taken from the product industry. So we've, as an event and as a company, have learned a lot from the actual industry that we're trying to help from our events point of view. And this is a famous slide. Hands up who might know this slide. Has anyone seen it before? So in the product world, it is a famous slide. And there's two. The top one is component-based and the bottom one is value-based. So if you look at those, I mean, what is the concept? Anyone got any ideas? Want to shout out what you think the concept's here? What are they trying to build? What are they trying to do? Mobility? Okay.
Maybe the second one was like developing skills, while the first one was focusing on one specific thing to get to that.
Yeah, like it. Great. Nobody said a car, which is good. So the goal here is mobility. It's transport, and then the execution, the way of doing it is twofold. So the first one is building it piece by piece. So if you take something like Web Summit's vision for their event was not to be whatever number they're saying at the moment. I don't know if they even had a vision to that scale. And they didn't get there overnight. It took time. They didn't go about it by building an event with 50,000 people and having nothing there, which so many companies and conferences out there are going, let's go scale, let's go big because we need to do it. But there's no value underneath that. The second one is the output. It's what you're trying to deliver for your customer, which is transport, getting them from A to Z. So you're looking at your event, what you have to figure out what it is you're trying to do for your audience and for your attendees. So if you look at Web Summit, they started off at Trinity with 40, 50 people. That's the skateboard. They had a concept there. They tested it, they put value on it, and then they grew it. So they were constantly providing value at every point, and I'm sure they tested out stuff and they failed, but they failed fast and they learned from it, which is the most important thing. So rather than thinking of, hey, I want the big car, or I want this big event, think of the value that you're trying to achieve for your attendee, and then look at how you're going to deliver it. And know that you don't have to deliver it overnight, it can be in stages. So this, I really like this it looks quite simple, but this is your entire stage of an event life cycle. This is everything in a nutshell and an overarching view of what you need to do to build an event. From your awareness, so if you're doing a ground zero event that nobody knows about, that's the first thing that you need to do. Then you go to get them interested. From interest, you go to intent of purchase. There's always an intent to purchase, because there's a very big difference in somebody intending to purchase versus purchasing, because more people will intend to go, but like even tonight, how many people signed up but didn't? You know, there's an intent there, but actually the delivery is the key. And then the planning. It's probably where most of your expertise, if you're event managers, will be this latter half, which will be your planning for the event. And then the attending, all your wayfinding, all your experiences at the event, the execution, making sure presentations are in, and then the follow-up, which is really critical to making sure that you've got a long-term valuable event. So I'm going to talk through now what we did to get our earliest testable event in 4 months. So we gave ourselves 4 months. We focused on the conference delivery of the product. So we skipped a lot of sections. We knew we couldn't achieve everything that we wanted, and we couldn't achieve it well. So we looked at, right, what is that minimal testable event that we could get out there? We focused on the research, because that was important to us, and the meetups, and then we moved on from event ticketing solution, because that was important to get in place. When you're building an event from scratch, you don't have any of your tools, you don't have any of your processes and places, so you need to prioritize. And then the event itself, the attend section, so we focused on the delivery on the day. So you're talking one day, 500 attendees, one stage and one after party. Very simple and straightforward execution. One stage, one day. So the outcomes of that event, we validated that there was a need for what we were trying to do. So designers and developers, who are our core audiences, do want to talk and do need it. It was one of the biggest issues that companies are facing at a top level, and they're willing to attend an event for it, hence the 500 people going. We did get good feedback. In year one, we got great feedback. They told us what they wanted, and we knew that we knew what we needed to achieve. Our learning, keep going, take the lessons that we learned and progress. So how do you expand? So you can see here now we've got more time to focus on the awareness and the interest. So we did a basic awareness plan through our meetups. Now we're doing one-to-one marketing communications, because we've got our audience there. We've got the people who attended from last year, 500 people. They've got colleagues signing up. So straight away we've got a means to network and connect with them. And again, we did a testing on the pricing for our ticket sales. We changed that because sometimes some of it was too high, too low. The months we released early birds, they weren't working. So we took the learning on all of those sections and then applied it to year 2. So the results was 2 stages, a training day which was asked for, 800 attendees, an Irish experience. We brought people around to go away, everywhere, and we had exclusive dinners, and it was really great. Now, one thing that was missing, the soul of the event for year 2, we felt was missing. So we listened exactly to what people wanted, but often you have to listen to what they want and what they're saying, but you have to interpret it in a different way sometimes. So people wanted to integrate, but at the same time they wanted to separate out onto different stages. People wanted to go and explore Ireland, but the reality was they couldn't get sign off on a ticket price to go on the tour. That was personal budget. So you have to figure out how you learn these, and the only way to do that is actually one-to-one feedback with your attendee. And even as an event manager, it's critical to do that. This was our biggest value that we could offer our attendee, and that's what we learned only in year 2, was our model and what we were trying to achieve. And so we have been growing that out in detail ever since. So it's bringing designers and developers and their core areas of language together in one kind of uniform model, which is the UXDX model. So that is our value proposition for our audience, and we've seen a growth massively to 1,000 people in year 3 because of that. So marketing was one thing that was critical for us in terms of that one-to-one marketing. Also, one of our biggest learnings was we went all in on our one-to-one email marketing, and we ignored social media almost. And we still do, because our theory is if we're not going to do it right, there's no point in doing it at all. But you do really need, from a marketing perspective, even from an attendee perspective, you need to be touching them at every single touch point. So you need to be figuring out your email campaigns, how that relates to your social strategy, and more. So one of the biggest learnings that we had was we need a quicker approach to test these ideas before the actual event. Every year is too long to actually be able to test assumptions and to validate it, and that was another big learning for us. So we decided to continue the learning and continue the growth, and we doubled down on our meetups. So we started creating more of those across Europe, because our audience went from Ireland in year 1 to Europe in year 2. So we expanded our meetup offering and our free events to our attendees who attended throughout the year in 9 cities. So by the end of 3 years, which was two and a half years in terms of actually time to delivery, because we delivered the first one really fast, we again had more learning. We knew that we had to go more into PR, which is a huge one, which I'm excited to hear about Kim later. PR was one thing that we didn't get right. We had an announcement from Niantic Labs, for example, who talked about Pokemon Go, one of the largest game, in fact the largest game in the entire world, and they did a launch at our event for their next event, or their next game, which is Harry Potter. And we missed the boat on that. So if you don't get the media right, you have to make sure you have every touch point accurate. Yeah, so we're almost there in terms of our delivery. So one of the things that we scrapped that you'll notice there is the Irish experience. So we created an event centred around Dublin. It was easier to organise and manage. Logistically, people didn't have to travel down on a bus 3 hours to go away. And the experience was a lot nicer for people and low commitment. Those events we ran in each city, which also allowed us to get feedback. So one of our 3 core areas, one of them was mission, and understanding that the mission of your event. We got to test our ideas and validate our assumptions by doing all of these events in multiple cities. It was also very interesting logistically from an events point of view. We ran, I think, 4 events in 1 week in 4 different cities, which was very interesting. So I think we hit 3 cities in 1 day. And then the other key is try again and keep trying until you get it right. You will fail, but the idea is to fail fast and fail often, and preferably at small bits. So where are we today? So we've gone through a testable and workable event and Loveable event. Genuinely, the experience from this year that I had, and it's always nervous going into an event, you have so much of a build-up. Straight away, because we got our email campaigns much better, we had our communications to our attendees much better. People knew what they were going to get on the day, and people also, because we had touched base with them in Europe, they weren't strangers to us, they were friends. And we have quotes from our speakers saying, like, the head of UX from Google has said it was one of the friendliest events that they've ever been to. And that's what we want to get from our event, is that people are walking away going, wow. I had Kevin Lee, who was the head of design and on the board for Visa. He came up to me and said, I want in on whatever you guys are doing, because I love that event. And you want your people walking away from your event with that experience. So yes, we are Loveable, but Loveable is 100% a moving target. So that's something to bear in mind. We were delighted with what we achieved, but it's only the first step. So that's really it. To summarize, and you can ask any questions you want to clarify anything. I want to reiterate how important it is to understand you as an event, no matter who, even if it's in your role, in your personal role, find out what your mission is. Make sure you understand the value that you're bringing to the table, because that is incredibly important. So if we do a Q&A, please ask me any questions if any of this isn't clear. And I'm going to leave you with two last slides. This is the first one, and this is, I talked about the agile industry. This is another part, the developer kind of side. This is the design side. And it is a say, think, do, and feel. So you might have an attendee, or you'll come up to me and you'll say, that was a great presentation, Catherine, but you're thinking, I didn't really get much value from that, or she didn't really go into detail of this. So what you're saying to me is very different to what you're thinking, because you might want to save face or that. So always be mindful of that when you're asking your attendees something. And then how you do and how you think and how you feel and how you act. So how you act to me might be totally different to what you do afterwards or what you feel. I might ask you, are you going to come next month? And you go, yeah, sure, I'll come next month. You have no intention of. So just remember that when you're interacting, those 4 things, what they say might be totally different than what to expect. And this is the last one that I'll leave you with, is you may have a lovable event and something that's wonderful. Web Summit have what some call a lovable event, but last year's delighter becomes this year's expectation. So we have a very high bar to fit for this year. And the next year is about working on how to actually make it just even better for your attendees. But always focus on your attendees and what they're trying to achieve for it. So that's it. Thank you.